What's up, everyone? Welcome to BRAP. It is Wednesday, February the 4th. Can't believe we're in the month of February. What's going on, everyone? Hope everyone's doing well this evening. Game Lunch will be joining me here just a bit. But yeah, great to be back. Got some news to discuss this evening. Got some a great article, by the way. Bloomberg had an article of interview with Obsidian. We'll talk a little bit about that. An update on the Ubisoft, the union that is filed a grievance with Ubisoft. So, got an update on that. We have some Nintendo fiscal Q3 earnings. We have a potential leak with the Xbox release date, the next Xbox. We'll talk about that as well, and some other gaming related news. Obviously, I will talk about. So ChronoWorks says, I'm curious what your opinion of Valve saying they don't know the price of the Steam machine due to RAM prices. I didn't see that come across my dashboard. Quick knee-jerk reaction though, ChronoReg. Can't say it totally surprises me, which means they're probably still pricing this thing out, I guess. I don't know. We still don't have a release date for the Steam machine. It's supposed to come out early this year, and the fiscal calendar year, at least if you follow the 12-month fiscal year calendar, that we were Q1 right now with about a month left. Q1 will end March. That's assuming your fiscal year is the calendar year, 12-month calendar year. But so I don't know. I didn't see that. They said it's still first half. Okay, I mean, just interesting. We haven't seen the price yet. Doesn't give me a lot of confidence that this thing's going to be cheap. I think there might be some sticker shock potentially. I'm still guessing over $1,000, probably $1,200-$1,400. I could be wrong. Maybe I've seen rumors of anywhere from $600 to $800, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe it goes north of that because of RAM. Who knows? We'll find out soon enough, right? There's one more thing I needed to do here real quick. Give me a sec here. Here we go. I need to update something here with the channel. All right. All right, sorry about that. So, I'm still interested in learning more about. I'm really seeing some games run on the Steam machine. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. It probably won't be something I pick up, to be honest with you. Also have some Nioh 3 reviews. Nioh 3 is coming out in 2 days. Releases February the 6th, this Friday. Now, if you've following the show for quite some time, you probably would know that I am actually a big fan of the Souls-like games, Dark Souls in particular. And I've never played Nioh. Never played Nioh. And look, the Nioh games have been reviewed well. I just never really got around to it. I might have to check it out. But Nioh right now, let me pull up the Metacritic here. Nioh right now is currently sitting at an 86 Metacritic. Let's read some of the reviews here. So 86 PS5, 84 on PC. It hasn't released yet. Not released yet on Xbox. Rumors are that Xbox Series X and S, possibly Nintendo Switch 2 releases could come as early as August 6th, 2026. And so this would mark the first time that Nioh has been available on any other platform besides PlayStation. Um, Corey Bass says there's no release for Xbox. No official release. Just some reports that 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 the game could be releasing August of this year, and they're all on PC. Yeah, that's true, Hidden. They're all on PC. But this goes back to a conversation I had, I think, the other day on about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago on X, where I said, I didn't think that if I was going to recommend a gaming console to somebody who's just looking to get into gaming, in good faith, I don't think I could recommend an Xbox. And I only say that because here's yet another example of a game that's not coming to Xbox day and date. So it's not releasing on Xbox. We don't have a release date. It's a game that's reviewed well. Another game that's reviewed very well. You can look at other games like, Black Myth Wukong was another one recently. Again, new game, was reviewed well. Didn't come out on Xbox till later on. Dispatch, which is a critically acclaimed, well, reviewed well, not on Xbox. No, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch 2 has a release date for it, but there's no release for Xbox yet. So, and those are just three examples. There's a multitude of examples of games that either completely skip Xbox or have a delayed release. But and that's why, in good faith, I don't think I could recommend somebody's who's looking to get into console gaming an Xbox for those reasons, because you're just missing out on those exclusives. Or not exclusive. I'm sorry. You're just missing out on some of those third party games that make it to PlayStation, that either don't release day and date, or release at a later date, or don't release at all, I should say, and then release at a later date. Excuse me. So it's they dropped the ball having the 360 generation. Yeah. A lot of people get upset when we talk about Xbox, and some of the comments in the comment section from last week's show, Friday show at least, were kind of interesting. Oh, by the way, do me a favor, do the YouTube thing, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification. If you do the show, so you're alerted when we go live. I dropped the link in the live chat. Please feel free to tweet or share the link on your favorite social media platform. Let everyone know we're live. But yeah, just a good conscience. I just can't recommend an Xbox to somebody who's who's looking to pick up a console for the first time. Or even if they're, let's say, on PC, right? Let's say they're on PC and they want to dabble their toes in console. I would say, look, go PlayStation. You get their exclusives day and date. You don't have to wait for them. You're going to get strong third party support. And I think that just speaks to kind of the state of Xbox right now. I think if you're in the Xbox ecosystem, you value the ecosystem, sure, it's probably the platform you should be on. All right, let me read some of these. Let me read some of these reviews here. I'm not going to read the 90s or the hundreds. See, Push Square, Nioh 3 takes the best bits from Team Ninja's previous efforts to form its greatest action experience in a very long time. Its open world, its new open zone maps provide more ways than ever to engage with its sublime, intense combat system. Even if the activities themselves are entirely unoriginal, this is a familiar feeling title for a fan base that knows what it wants. A few franchises do hardcore action better. Nioh 3 is its latest triumph. Let's look at some of these other games. Radar gave it a 90. I want to go back to. I don't want to go to the full review. Games Radar gave it a full 90. A 90 review score. They said a triumphant evolution of the series for existing fans and the best possible jumping on point, though far from an easy one for new ones. Nioh 3 demands care, planning, and patience, and gives intense satisfaction in the form of a brutal but engrossing adventure in return. These websites I've never heard of. Loot Level Chill. Okay. Saudi Gamer. That's a new one. True Gamer, Gaming Trend, Gaming Bolt. Gaming Bolt's also giving it a nice. Says Nioh 3 doesn't sell for iterative improvements. Instead, it pulls together Team Ninja's best mechanics from past entries, folds in welcome touches from its other games, and backs it all up with genuinely strong new additions that feel mechanically sound and consistently engaging. Not going to read PlayStation Lifestyle. Dual Shockers. Also giving 90. Nioh 3 is an incredible game that expands on the core gameplay of its predecessors and drops players into a vast world where they can unleash their combat potential to their heart's content. It's a huge step up for the series as a whole. I'm excited to see where it goes next. All right, I might have to pick this up. I might have to pick up Nioh 3. I don't know. Do I need to play the first two Nioh games? Probably not, right? I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I go back and play the first two Nioh games? Do I need to? I don't think I do. I don't know. I know the demo's out right now. I might give the demo a chance here. I don't know. I'm still playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah. I don't know. What does everyone think about Ryan Hurst says Kratos, the new God of War series coming to Amazon Prime. Looking forward to that. All right. Let me see something here. Back to GameSpot gave it a 90 from quality of life enhancements. From quality of life enhancements like this to excellent new additions and refinements to its core systems, Nioh 3 is absolutely superb across the board. It's an evolution of the Nioh formula where every single new idea lands. That's good. That's reassuring. There might be a couple of issues, but they're relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. Nioh 3 is Team Ninja at its very best, learning from its own development side quest to return with renewed vigor. The end result is the best game in the series so far and one not to be missed. Oh, okay. All right. So now I'm going to download the demo. All right. So currently sits at an 86 right now on PlayStation, 84 on PC. This is Metacritic. I didn't go to OpenCritic, but definitely something I'm going to take for a spin. See if this is a game that I want to pick up. See if this game can get me off of Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, I've been hooked on Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, he was actually pretty good at Sons of Anarchy. That's a great point. All right, so interesting. I want to share a kind of a back and forth here on Twitter exchange that I had today. I always find these exchanges kind of interesting. Let's go to Twitter. Pull up. This is going to be a long. Oh, it's not letting me share. Hold on a sec here. All right. So we have news. Nintendo, the Nintendo Switch has sold 155.37 million units. It's officially Nintendo's best-selling console ever after overtaking Nintendo DS during the recent holiday sales period. Let's also remember something too. Nintendo did cannibalize its console and handheld business together, consolidated the two, which brilliant move, right? Brilliant. Nintendo Switch is the highest sales volume of any Nintendo hardware, of 100 million annual playing users, continuing the trend from last year. Nintendo Switch 2 is actually doing fairly well. So I put something out, right? I put something out because there is this narrative out there. There's a bit of fan fiction that the console market's dying, it's stagnant, yada yada yada, and a lot of it comes from people who, from what I can tell, are very pro Xbox. Which again, I don't. You can like Xbox, and still acknowledge that it really is an Xbox problem. It's not a Nintendo or Sony PlayStation problem. The issues that Xbox are having are really only Xbox issues, right? Nintendo and PlayStation aren't seeing, you know, consistent fiscal year declines in hardware revenue, which is really a sign of demand, right? We see a decline in demand in Xbox hardware, which again is to be expected, given the fact that they've gone multi-plat, third party, behaving more like a third party agnostic publisher and telling people, hey, you don't need to buy an Xbox console to experience our games, right? So again, nothing, that's their prerogative. Some people enjoy participating in that ecosystem. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I look at them more. I look at Xbox more now as a third party publisher, platform agnostic publisher than I do. I look at them like I do EA now. My interest in Xbox is solely just okay. What new games are coming out? What games are going to keep me subscribed, engaged in Game Pass? Am I getting that ROI with Game Pass? If I'm not, then I'm not subscribing. I'm not going to do it. So I did put this tweet out, and it was kind of interesting because, I said, the console market is stagnant. Nintendo, hold my beer. Now that quote is the console market is stagnant is a narrative that I come across my timeline quite a bit. Where people are saying that the console market's not growing, it's stagnant, et cetera, et cetera. And yet we have the PlayStation 5, which is already, according to Sony's reported this too, by the way. The PlayStation 5 console generation is Sony's most profitable console generation, right? So people tend to, we've said this on this show, people tend to treat the gaming industry different than they do other consumer products, right? Other consumer markets. They just do. For whatever reason, they do. The laws of economics don't apply to gaming, things like that, right? Just don't apply to gaming for whatever reason. They do for other consumer product markets, but not for gaming though, for whatever reason. And I actually don't disagree that console gaming at least is a mature market. Like the boom period of PlayStation 2 Trojan horsing consoles into households of people who aren't gamers, that's gone. That's never coming back, right? Remember, and the PlayStation 2, oddly enough, has kind of been this talking point where people cherry picking this anomaly, which is let's like the PlayStation 2 is an anomaly. Its success is an anomaly. And people look at me crazy when I say that. And I say that because the time the PlayStation 2 released, we got to remember that PlayStation 2 released had a built-in DVD player. And at the time, standalone DVD players were very expensive. And the PlayStation 2 was actually a very cheap option for the PlayStation 2. I mean, for a DVD player. Actually, it was actually a really good DVD player at that too. But it was a cheap DVD player that happened to play video games. So you did find a lot of consumers buying the PlayStation 2, people that weren't necessarily gamers, traditional console gamers, buy PlayStation 2s because it was a cheap DVD option as opposed to buying a standalone DVD player at the time. So, that phenomena, that anomaly is probably not going to happen. It's a bit disingenuous to cherry pick that anomaly and say, look, point to that data point and say, well, look what's happening here. It's been stagnant. They're never going to sell 150 million PlayStations ever again. It's just not going to happen. It's stagnant. The market's stagnant. But what does that mean, stagnant? When you say it's stagnant, what are you trying to say? You trying to say that? And I think with the Xbox folks, it's not a matter of, you know, I think it's a matter of just them saying, well, it's stagnant, therefore Xbox is just and correct in what they're doing and the direction they're heading. Well, no, Xbox is doing what they're doing because they've had trouble selling hardware, and the position they were in the market required them to shift strategically, right? Um, the challenges that Microsoft and Xbox hardware face are a bit different than the challenges that Nintendo or PlayStation may face, right? Um, Chopper Eric says, I was working at a Walmart Electronics at the PS2 release. I sold everyone who came in for a DVD player a PlayStation 2 instead. I mean, and I remember, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember it was an easy sale. I remember like I knew people, and I know this is anecdotal, but I knew people that weren't necessarily console gamers, and yes, the Matrix DVD, that's correct. But I do remember people who had not been, I've known to be console gamers, go out and buy a PlayStation 2 because it was a cheap DVD player. Right. So that was kind of the Trojan horse for PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 2 clearly benefited from that. But if you look at the monetization, you look at the average revenue per user, the average spend per user, it's actually higher on the PlayStation 5 than the PS2. So with increased profitability and revenue of PS5 over PS2, I highly doubt that PlayStation 2 is saying, oh, shucks, we're not selling 150 million, guys. Because what's more valuable to PlayStation or Nintendo? 150 million consoles where maybe 30% of the user base isn't an active participant in the ecosystem, right? Or selling, 117 million where maybe 80% are active participants in the ecosystem. The other thing that I heard today, and I'll just scroll down here, this guy replied, take all the Switches that I've ever sold plus PS4, Xbox One, since that is one entire generation, then compare that number to the PS2 era with Xbox, PS2, Nintendo at GBA console are selling to the same 180, 200 million people it's been selling to for 20 years. Now, later on in this thread here, I mentioned to Danny, actually, last console generation saw over 300 million consoles sold. So not the 180 to 200 million that he's saying. And in fact, it's over 300 million. But I say, like any consumer market, only a limited number of people will ever participate. Even so, console gaming keeps expanding its revenue and profitability. And that's the ultimate sign of successful, business model, right? The health of any true business is its profitability and its ability to grow profits and revenue, right? So, and this idea that, okay, well, consoles are doomed, or consoles are never growing. It's not entirely true. Is it now? Look, and I conceded the point in this thread. Is it booming the way it did in the early 2000s? No, but there's reasons for that explained, at least on the PlayStation side. One of those reasons, but it has grown, and it continues to grow. I haven't come across any analyst that says that the console market isn't growing. When you look at the global console gaming market has quadrupled from 2000 to 2025, from 11 to 17 billion to now 45 to 49 billion. That's the console market. I mean, so that's growth. That's growth. That is growth. And my point to this individual was like, look, like new consumer growth isn't anywhere near net zero. That's the other thing. Well, it's stagnant. Well, that stagnant, flat implies there's no growth. It's not. It's not net zero. PlayStation said, look, 30% of PS5 owners didn't own a PS4. The guy argues, well, maybe they came from Xbox or somewhere else. Maybe they did, and maybe they didn't. The two things could be true. Yeah, there could be some bleed off of people who are maybe Switch owners owning both Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5. They didn't have a PS4 last generation. Or you may have people that defected off Xbox and went to PS5 and didn't have a PS4 last generation. And you may have some people there, that 30%, that that are new. But this idea, there are negligible amounts of new console players. Okay, so what? So now this person is just creating this arbitrary KPI or number to kind of justify this point, this narrative. And my reply is most likely they had an Xbox or a Switch, sure. Well, actually, I quoted him, sure. And some of them are simply new consumers. Both things can be true. That's what I said. Small. That's what I said just a second ago. Small but steady stream of new console players is not the same as net zero or flatline, which applies no good at all. The bigger point is that in mature markets, game consoles included, can still grow revenue, new users, and stay profitable. We see the pattern in plenty of other established consumer markets. We do. We see this in fast food, the fast food industry. He says even if they are succeeding in squeezing more money out of existing users, no real growth in the console market and new users. What is no real growth? What does that mean? And see, this is the problem. This is the narrative. This is the fan fiction, right? There's no real growth in the console market and new users. What do you mean no real growth? There is growth. And basically this person's cherry picking the singular data point of PS2 and saying, oh, well, that's real growth. But what does that growth for PS2 mean to the PlayStation business? If PlayStation 5 is more profitable than PS2, then what are we talking about here? I think this person just doesn't understand the ecosystem, how the ecosystems work and how mature markets work, and the fact that, in fact, PlayStation's actually earning more off its current user base than it did the PS2 generation. So what's more valuable to the business? He's not, that part isn't registering with him. And then he strawmans, but clearly it's not enough for console releases would not be going to PC. Again, this needs a bit more nuance here, because Sony's talked about their strategy to PlayStation and PC releases. They've looked at PC ports as, hey, if we win our games, Sean Layden's talked about this, the GLT's talked about this. When our games are profitable on PlayStation, yeah, we port them over. Because it's an easier lift. It's easy money, right? It's additional revenue. But only after their games have become profitable on consoles. Okay. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So I said if consoles were enough, they wouldn't go to PC. It's a false premise. Putting more games on more platforms doesn't automatically equal growth. I said, look at Xbox's Q2 2026 numbers. That is the other thing. People assume that, okay, well, it's a given. I put my games on more platforms. I'm going to sell more. I'll make more money. Then you look at the Xbox quarterly numbers that came out last week. Content services down -5%. Overall gaming revenue down -7%. And that is with Xbox putting their games on PlayStation. It says, why go to PC now? Why not the PlayStation 2, PS3 era? That money was always there waiting for them. Well, there's actually reasons for that. Some of it technology, right? It's easier to port. Let me grab Logic here. What's going on, Logic? Oh, Logic, who are you today in the profile pic?
I am Mr. Shintaro Furukawa-san, CEO of Nintendo.
Okay. CEO of Nintendo, yeah. Nintendo's out here printing money. Is that the guy who smokes cigars?
Yeah, it's weird. We're making this Switch 2 thing now, and somebody told me that like the gaming market is declining.
That's actually what I'm reading here. This is the thread, Logic, by the way, that I mentioned to you earlier. So I'm going to read some of this, then we can move on. I'm just more or less killing time until you got here. I didn't want to get some of the topics until you got here, but so this guy, let's go back and forth with this guy today, Logic. We're talking about like console numbers, console growth. Like his argument just didn't make sense to me. He keeps going back to PlayStation 2. Well, you're never going to sell as much as PlayStation 2. You're selling to the same people. And I'm like, yeah, but are you really selling to the same people? Because Sony's telling us that 30% of PlayStation 5 owners didn't own a PS4. That means something. And that, Sony's already talked about PS5 being the most profitable generation. PS5 being the most profitable generation of any PlayStation generation. Um, but then the argument of why go to PC now? Why not the PS2, PS3 era? That money was always there, waiting for them. It's because they wanted to grow their console business back then. They aren't anymore. They topped out. And I explained this why Sony had gone to PC at this point. Talked about PC revenue kind of being a small slice of the PlayStation business, and actually their last, I think, corporate report, Sony's last corporate report in September, they actually removed PC as a growth pillar and talked about doubling down on console. But I don't know, Lach, what are your quick thoughts here? Because we can move on to another topic, but just want to get your thoughts on this conversation I was having.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if they're quick thoughts. One thing is his notion that that money was always there. I think in a lot of the conversations that are going around these days, it's kind of weird to me that people have this revisionist history of what the gaming market has been. The gaming market in the PlayStation 2 era was between 11 and 17 billion dollars. And today it's over a $90 billion business. It it is essentially doubled every 10 years, I want to say, I think is how it works. And so it's now quadruple the size that it was in the times that he's talking about. And so no, that money wasn't always there. He's talking about a time when box copies of games were still sitting on retail shelves of PC games. We're still sitting on retail shelves at the beginning of that generation. So it wasn't as simple as PlayStation putting their games on PC, and the market wasn't as big. And I think I made like admittedly a malformed analogy to you earlier today when I said, yeah, like when no one lived west of the Mississippi, then land was plentiful and free, right? You could buy multiple acres of land for 30 cents, right? But the point is that I was trying to make was I was like, because there's no one staking a tent on that environment, right? So as a result, businesses markets go through these periods of revolutionary spikes, right, where the arrow on the growth slide goes way up very quickly. But then as the market gets saturated and it gets full and it gets filled and it becomes mature, there's not as much opportunity. But that doesn't mean that people just give up the ghost. You and I have been talking this week. I'm like, Microsoft microwave manufacturers haven't abandoned ship and said, "Oh my God, air fryers! Let's stop making microwaves." Right? They're encountering adversity, sure, but they haven't abandoned ship. And I'm like, and as I'm constantly saying on the topic, nobody's going to abandon a $90+ billion market just because one of the competitors is having a bad time. We're waiting on PlayStation financials now, which will be out at 1600 Japanese time tomorrow. So by the time we all wake up, those earnings should be on the street. But Nintendo's earnings are out, and they doubled their revenue, right, in a year-over-year time. So obviously they were at the it's comparing the final year of the preceding generation to this one, but again, the notion that there's zero growth is just a fallacy. It's small, and what happens when there's less? What happens when there's less meat on the table to be had? Then that means only the strong are going to get the meat. Only the big dudes are going to get the turkey leg, right? And if you're not one of the big dudes at the table, then you either got to find new hunting grounds or you're not going to eat. Microsoft is seeking new hunting grounds, and again, that's a great vector for them to pursue. But again, that the land they're seeking isn't entirely fertile. Steam has set up a hunting post on that territory and is going after it hard. So, it's not like Microsoft's going to go over there and find zero competition. So, again, that's a thing that somebody considers when they consider whether or not they're going to follow them into that territory.
Yeah. And these are some of the Nintendo numbers here. Nintendo maintained its November forecast for Switch 2 sales of 19 million units in the fiscal year ending March 2026. Revenue rose 86% year on year in its fiscal third quarter ending December 31st, while profit rose 24%. I don't know, man. The console industry looks pretty healthy to me. See if there's anything else here. We talked about revenue, net profit. Revenue rose 80%. Yeah, I talked about that. He talked about the memory thing. I don't know if you saw that logic. Memory upgrade concerns linger.
Yeah, so he doubled down on not planning on raising prices on the Switch 2 for another year, which is something he said 3 weeks ago. And so, he's maintained consistency on that through this most recent earnings call.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, Nintendo's doing well. I mean, last we heard, the Switch 2 was, I think, outpacing. I think it was. I don't know if it was. I don't know if Matt Circana had posted this.
No, it's in a slide in their earnings report. So again, going back to the foolishness of December, when journalists in air quotes were running around about, oh my God, the Switch, sold less. The Switch 2 sold less than the Switch did during its holiday season. I'm like, that's because if you time align it, you're 3 months off from an apples to apples comparison that you're trying to make. And so if you look at the curve on the sales of Nintendo Switch 2 time aligned over Switch, they are way ahead. They are they're about 8 million units ahead of where the Switch was in the same timeline at 15. The chart has them at 15 million units, but their earnings report shows them at like 17.37 million units with a revised forecast for them to sell through 19 million units by the time their fiscal year ends in the next 3 months. Actually, I don't know if that's a revision. They may have said 19 million units the entire time, but whether or not they revised it or was their original, they're well on track to achieve that.
So basically, the console market's healthy right now for them.
I mean, yeah. I mean, then when you compare this one is tough because it's not quite apples to apples. If you look at their digital software unit sales, I think these are digital only. They sold 54 million units in the holiday quarter last year, and this year they sold 64 million units. So, significant improvement year over year in that holiday quarter, which we're now, comparing to the Xbox holiday quarter when they've shipped more software than they did the year before. They've got more software on the largest installed, platform. They went through significant cost-cutting measures, and yet they're down. Just to put a bigger stamp on the thing you said before about the multi-platform strategy that was supposed to do a thing that's not doing a thing. It's a little more extreme than you talked about. Like if I do a straight line fit on where they have dropped from Q1 2025 to Q1 2020 FY 2026, their growth rate has dropped almost 30% in 1 year's time. And so this is the time frame that people are asserting your games need to be on every platform, and if you put your games on more platforms, you will make more money. And literally, right, in the mathematical definition of the term, Xbox has done that, and they have done the exact opposite. They have actually made less money.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the you said the PlayStation financials come out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, PlayStation financials are out tomorrow, and then
Yeah,
the
it's
other
gonna be
interesting
interesting
thing
to see.
I'm interested to see is the year-end numbers for Xbox. We'll have a direct one-to-one comparison between the 24.5 billion that they made last year to what they've made in a year since then.
Okay. Yep, hold on, Secret Logic. I need to pull another screen up here. All right, Logic. If you saw this news story here, AMD CEO suggests next gen Xbox will launch in 2027. The premium consoles chip is progressing well. This was in an AMD's earning call. CEO Dr. Lisa Su told analysts and investors that it's already well into development. The future Xbox consoles. What is it? I forget what SoC is again. Let's see, system. I forget. What is it again? Logic. I always forget this. I think I lost Logic. All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's system on a chip.
System on a chip. Thank you. Know that. Let me read this again. AMD's earning call. CEO Dr. Lisa Lu told analysts and investors that it is already well into development of the future Xbox console systems on a chip, noting that launch window, no certain terms, development of Microsoft's next gen Xbox featuring AMD semi-custom system on chips progressing well, supporting launch in 2027. So I don't know, Logic. What do you think? You think this is a 2027 launch based on Dr. Lisa Su, what she said during the investor call?
I mean, not because of what she said. I mean, that corroborates what I've been saying for a long time. I mean, going back to, I think it was the first year that I was on the show when Forte was here, and we asked this question about like when these next boxes were shipping, and I said I think this generation will be exactly as long as previous similar generations, about 7 years. And I said, it's not like Nvidia and AMD are going to stop progressing GPUs, right? And GPU technology. Like, yeah, I get it. We had a pandemic, and it was bad, but the march of technology continues forward, and time, tide, and formation wait for no man. So, the other thing is, I know that we often slander these CEOs for having short-term vision, and I actually don't think that they have short-term vision. I think that some CEOs often sacrifice long-term positioning for short-term gains. But I think they do have a long-term vision, and I think particularly in the console space, there is a metric, there is a forecast associated with how much money they think that console is going to make during the 7 years that it is the premier console on the market for them. And I think part of this was evidenced by Jim Ryan's some of Jim Ryan's discussions about he wanted to get more reps, right, per out of his marquee studios per console generation. And so I think that again, these guys have a notion of how much money they're going to make, but I also think that they understand when when a console launches, it's like a rocket booster. And so that rocket booster has a point in time where that fuel is going to expire, and you're going to stop getting that momentum for making money. And the way to refresh that rocket booster is to launch a new console. And it's the same thing in the PC space. I mean, Microsoft, and in particular its laptop vendors, the laptop vendors go to Microsoft and they say, you're killing us, Smalls, right? Like, you need to whip up a new version of Windows so that we can get a renewed push to encourage people to go buy desktops and laptops. Because when do the vast majority of normals go buy a new machine? When a new version of Windows comes out.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah.
You know, so unfortunately, the last time the laptop vendors asked them for that, Microsoft didn't give them Windows 12. Microsoft gave them Copilot.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So
We got this great AI thing called Copilot.
so I think these companies have a notion of, hey, when are we going to apogee on how much money we're making out of this console, and when do we need to do a technology refresh, right, to encourage the next round of sales? So I don't think pandemic figures into, like, I feel like what I've heard is I've heard a lot of people saying, well, there was the pandemic, and well, the generation was slow to start, and so they got out of the gate late, and so, you know, software teams didn't really start delivering until like 2 years later. I don't think they care about that. I think they care about how much money they can make in a generation. If a generation gets delayed, you know, I'm taking the RAM discussion off the table, right? But just straight stick. If the generations get delayed, it will be because they think they can continue making the same money that they would have made otherwise, right? By launching a new console. The only way it makes sense is if the whole thing of, well, we had a pandemic, so things got off to a slow start. The only way they won't launch new consoles, I think, is because they think they haven't hit that apogee, right? And they still think that they have fuel in the rocket booster. But if they feel like things are tapering, then I think they're just going to continue marching along. Because, like I said, AMD and NVIDIA aren't like breaking stride, you know, because of a pandemic.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Logic. I like the booster rocket analogy, because I suspect that if hardware's down a bit for PlayStation, people are going to point to that, saying, "Look, oh, the console's dying." You know, people interpret that number incorrectly, and I think that for me that goes back to what you just said about the rocket fuel. You know, at some point, I mean, you saw this in Nintendo Switch. As much as many consoles Nintendo Switch sold, at some point it hit critical mass and just stopped. You started seeing those year-over-year declines, right? Quarterly declines, and that's normal within a console's life cycle. I think I kind of go back to the PlayStation financials. I think that the thing that I'm going to be interested in looking at tomorrow is what is it? Their games and services, GNS.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in seeing. Like, is there growth there, right? If there is, that would let me know that, like, yeah, people are still engaged in the platform. They're still spending money. They're doing what PlayStation wants them to do, and that's be an engaged consumer. You know, driving rent. I'm sorry, not rent. Driving additional revenue for the platform.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this about PlayStation. So,
Yeah.
Yes, yea, verily, that will be true. But let's say they do want to delay, and let's keep with the hypothesis of the rocket booster engine. Their strategy this generation has been to increase the monetization of the users that they do have, right? Which is fine, right? We've got users that spend about $250 a year, right, at minimum, or on average, on PlayStation. Now, that has been driven by, you know, a little bit PSVR 2, PlayStation Portal, Wavelink earbuds, Pulse Elite headsets, right?
DualSense Edge.
What's that? Yeah, DualSense Edge, collector's edition stuff, right? You know, and when you have great games to go along with that, like that fuels the accessory buy, right? Because that sends people out to get the God of War controller and the Spider-Man controller, and the Death Stranding controller, right, which I have. You know, and they've you know, made additional headsets, right? I think they made a couple monitors too, right?
Yeah, they did. They did the PC monitors. Yeah.
And we have the speakers coming out. The speakers are supposed to be out like this quarter, aren't they? Didn't they say
I
they
don't.
want this to be Q1 2026?
I honestly don't remember.
I can't remember. But like, okay, so how many more tchotchkes, right, can you make for the PlayStation 5 to help like, this report? And again, I'm not a big fan of rumors and leaks and supposeds and all that kind of stuff, because I don't start earmarking money because Tom Henderson says a thing is coming out, right? Gurman is saying new MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros are dropping like sometime this week. I'm not earmarking money, right? Because that's not an official announcement. But like, the supposed rumor that the PlayStation Portal OLED is coming out, right? Like, so now you're getting into the point where you're doing redos, right, on things that you used and leaned on to help drive the higher monetization per customer. So that is a thing that, like, I don't know. Maybe those are mini booster rocket engines, right? Like, those things start running out of fuel, because I don't know that the hype, that the hype is going to be there at the 7% attach rate for the PlayStation Portal OLED like it was for the PlayStation Portal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, how many more of those rounds do they have in the barrel?
Well, I mean, isn't there that rumor PlayStation handheld? I don't know if that's something that releases this generation.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I go back and forth on that every day. Like, the OCD part of my mind says, well, obviously that launches alongside the next console, right? But it could absolutely be a possibility to be, right, like a mid-generation launch that crosses two generations, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could, right?
I mean, isn't that what the PlayStation Portable did? Was it the Portable or the Vita? I can't remember now.
I don't remember. I mean, technically
it
could.
The Portable was PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, right?
I don't remember. Maybe.
I can't remember. Or maybe it was the Vita. One of the two previous PlayStation handhelds, like, launched, I would say launched mid-generation and then crossed over and was still like a thing that was talked about as being like a partner device to the follow-on console as well.
Yeah, I mean, that handheld, the PlayStation handheld could be cross-generational potentially. But then I was thinking, but then I don't know. I mean, but then would it make sense for them to have it cross-generational?
I'm trying to say that it makes sense. Okay, yeah, I was surprised the chat didn't correct me sooner than that. Brent Abraham says, yes, the Vita. So I guess okay, so the Vita was 2011. So yeah, the Vita was both PS3 and PS4.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they launched the Vita like 2 years before they launched the next console, right? So it was kind of a wind up to the pitch, a 2-year wind up. So I mean, yeah, the PlayStation handheld could definitely kind of come in on the last couple of years of the PS5 generation, and then walk you into the PS4 or PS6.
Yeah, that would be another feather in their cap. We talk about monetization, right? See, Chris Coleman says I'm still on the Mark Cerny fall 2020 timeline. He said last year that PS6 is a few years away when talking about Project Amethyst. 2 years is 3 minimum.
So, Chris, I too have your OCD predilection with, a couple absolutely means 2 and a few means at least 3. I would actually say a few means 3 to 6. And then when you say several, that means 7 or more. But I don't think most human beings are that stringent about their interpretation of the English language.
A couple always means 2 to me.
Yeah. Now, Chris, you are correct. I'm agreeing with you, but I also don't think that everybody hews as closely to those definitions as we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about PlayStation financials tomorrow, and there was something else I was going to say, and I forgot now. I don't know. It might come back to me later, or maybe not. Billboard Contra says PSP was PlayStation 2 to PS3.
Yeah, I think everybody else is right. I think the dates I'm looking at is PSP launched in 2004 in Japan, and then 2005 in um in the US. And that makes sense because I was out of the country. I was out of the country in 2005, and I could specifically remember where I was playing on my PlayStation Portable, and how important it was to me at the time because I was out of the country. Um, and then and then the Vita. I think the Vita dates are right too. Um, on those being 2011, because I can remember when the Vita launched. Yeah, Vita was released in Japan in 2011 and in North America in 2012. Yeah, so the last couple years of the um of the generation. I can remember when the Vita launched because Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty were still at IGN.
I don't know. Do we think that Xbox will get a head start on PlayStation? A year head start, 2027.
Well, I wouldn't articulate it as a head start on PlayStation because I think that head start is them exiting the console platform market. Um,
That's a good point. Like Sarah Bonds already talked about this thing being like I forget what she said.
I mean, I'm just gonna take. I don't care what she said. I'm just gonna take her words and tell her what she meant. It's gonna be a PC. It's gonna be a PC with some type of hosting capability for backwards compatible games. But but yes, I do because also remember what I said during the acquisition was that because of Discovery, because of statements on the stand and Discovery, both competitors learned that each at the time was planning on launching their next gen console in at the time 2027. I'm going to say is what they both admitted to, and what I said at the time was now that competitive intel is out, one of them is going to make a move to jump the other. One of them isn't going to stick with their plan to launch in 2027.
Yeah,
So
I think you're. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
so I think however it works out, yes, I do think Xbox is gonna. What I said at the time was I think one of them it will launch right the year early, and yes, I do think it's going to wind up being Xbox because they're the one who's in the most miserable position, right, with the current gen hardware not going anywhere. And people give us crap when we. I don't look. I don't think Xbox is Sega 1-to-1, but I think there are some eerie similarities between what happened with Sega and the Saturn and Sega and the Dreamcast. And Sega launched the Saturn, and it was a lame duck, and they gave up on it early, which sounds eerily like Xbox One. Because they didn't pull Xbox One off the shelf, but they definitely stopped, right? They definitely stopped throwing jabs. And they definitely focused on doing the things that they needed to do to win hearts and minds as they wind up into the next generation. So the back half of that generation became less about games, less about exclusives, and became about Game Pass, studio acquisitions, right? Goodwill, backwards compatibility. Those were the things that Phil Spencer spent the entire back half of that generation talking about. And then what's going on with Xbox Series S now, Xbox Series X and S now, is very similar to Dreamcast. And the big death knell for Sega was, at least at that time, you couldn't get away with that 2 generations in a row, right? Of the airplane in a nose down attitude, right, heading for ground impact from a hardware perspective. And it seems like the cyclical right output of Xbox for 2 generations is very similar to those 2 generations of Sega.
And you've made the argument too that some of this behavior mimics Microsoft's kind of exiting of their other like Windows Phone. I think we talked about this last week.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
You know,
yeah, well, I haven't necessarily. What I've said is that the PR seems very much the same, and like, there were things that as a hardcore Windows fan, right? Because at the time, my primary shtick was I was a mobile device reviewer, right? Mobile phones and tablets, a little bit of laptops, but that was my gig, and I wholeheartedly believed not 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 only Microsoft but also BlackBerry, right? I told you, like, I distinctly remember the day I deleted the Crackberry URL from my browser links, right? Because I have this list of like 50 browser links that are part of my news feed. And I remember how long I held onto that Crackberry link, just refusing to believe that BlackBerry was giving up the ghost. But like I was a dyed in the wool Windows Phone fan. And yeah, I've had to go back in the years past and like really parse what was said to us and then identify, right. And this is why I'm so precise about, yeah, this was said then, and this is what happened, right? And we should have known. Then this happened, and we should have known. Then this, right? So it was a cascading avalanche, where the signs were there, the fingerprints were there, but we just chose not to listen because we were huge fans.
yeah, you bring up a great point too about the not so much like Xbox getting a head start as much as them like exiting the console space. And there was that article by Windows Central that talked about like the next Xbox is a full Windows PC. That much we know. And like you said, like you're taking Sarah Bond's words as like this thing's going to be a PC. They're just going to slop. It's not slop. They're gonna slap an Xbox sticker on it. And I've had a former industry exec tell me like, yeah, that's what they're doing. They're gonna slap an Xbox sticker on it so they can continue to monetize, get that 30% revenue cut from third party sales and then continue to charge people the higher price Game Pass tiers, even though PC Game Pass is cheaper, uh, which is kind of interesting. Kind of lead people to believe that they're not exiting consoles, um, but yeah, no, I think this thing is and it's interesting. Like, and I think about it as a PC. Um, like I don't know. I'm still struggling to figure like who this thing is for. Logic. I mean, and are people really are console gamers really gonna want to game on a PC? I had this conversation in the Crossfire chat. I said, I think the minute people become sysadmins, that that some people may be turned off by that. Or having, I think one of the comments in the Crossfire chat was, oh well, PC gaming's easier today. You have the Nvidia app, you can do driver updates, and that's true. Definitely easier than we talked about this. Definitely easier than it was like in the 90s, early 2000s. And I said this, I said, but the question is, does someone want to be a sysadmin when that Nvidia driver update, throws something off, and they got to go hunting and figure out what happened, or and that happened with like my monitor. I did Nvidia. I remember we do Nvidia updates, and like my monitor would go super bright all of a sudden. I had to figure out like how to adjust the settings, the color settings or something. It was annoying, but I had to figure it out. Right? Do console gamers really want that headache? Probably not. They want that plug and play experience. And I also argued if it isn't a one-to-one experience, it doesn't feel like an Xbox console, home console. It doesn't smell like an Xbox home console. It doesn't taste like an Xbox home console. If it's not that one-to-one, it's probably not going to resonate, I think, with people who are accustomed to that experience or want that kind of experience, that ease of access, that plug and play. And that's the part that I'm really curious to see how Microsoft pulls that off, because there is some tinkering involved when you play on PC. It's not as simple as plug and play as it is consoles.
So stick with me here. This is going to be a really wonky analogy.
Okay.
So in the very early years of my entrance into engineering management, we had two disciplines at my company. We had systems engineers and we had software engineers. And the systems engineers, their cost code was 107, and software engineers, their cost code was 109. I started working on a project where it was staffed by systems engineers, but the fact of the matter was that they were doing software development. And as a result, and systems engineers have historically been this domain of expertise that it's just kind of like roll up your sleeves, get things done, make miracles happen. Bring in some integration via like some side domain that pure engineers like in the mechanical domain or the electrical domain or the software domain like don't know, right? Because they're knee deep right in their domain expertise. And so after a while, I started arguing that the systems engineers who are really doing software development should really be 108s, right? Because they really needed exposure to more software disciplines, and those software disciplines actually needed to be their processes, which weren't in like the systems engineering Bible right at the company. The point of me laying all that out, I've talked before how in the late 80s, 90s, we had this breed of gamer that doesn't exist anymore. They played on these things called micro PCs. They played on the TI-99. They played on the Commodore 64. They played on the VIC-20. They played on the Atari Amiga, the Coleco Atom. And when those things were eliminated from the market because the market wouldn't support them, I assume that those people defected and chose to move downstream to consoles or upstream to PC. Or they just exited the space entirely. So I think what you're going to wind up seeing is it's not so much a matter of convincing console gamers to upgrade or even convincing PC gamers to downgrade. It is, but the reality is what you're going to see is you're going to see the rise of 108. You're going to see the rise of these hybrid gamers who play on these new things that are, I'm just going to dumb down prepackaged micro PCs, and you're going to see the rise again of that type of demographic on the market. And those are going to be the people who play on Xbox Magnus and on Steam Machine, and they will be very, very small in number. I think that's the key conflict, right? Is that I do think Microsoft is going to convince some people to go in that direction. So that's my pushback to you, but my pushback to those other people who are saying this thing is going to sell bonga and like Microsoft is going to halt and catch fire are way like incredibly wrong. Like Xbox has been on a backslide. They were down 2-1 last generation. They're down 3-1 this generation, and that cascade is going to continue. And they're going to sell single-digit million number units of this box, probably 9 million tops. And I think the Steam Machine is going to sell between 10 to 15 million. So, like, they're going to be an incredibly niche category. And they're not going to be unified because they're going to be spread across two devices, and the Steam Machine is going to be way different than the Xbox Magnus. But but I think I think that rise of that rise of the different kind of gamers is going to come again. I think that rise is going to be short lived because after this due, I think Xbox will be no more from a hardware perspective, or it will be even smaller. They're already irrelevant now at 9.85% as far as I'm concerned. They're going to be even smaller next time and smaller again next time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know. I just don't know how relevant they're going to be. So it's going to be very short lived, branch of the gene of the phylum, with the X gene, be an offshoot of mutant that will be very short lived.
Well, I think, to your point about, this device maybe attracted to a smaller subset of the Xbox consumer base or consumers, console consumer. I think that is what's I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. Well, I think that points to. I'm sorry to say is that points to this, like kind of what Sarah Bond's like. This being a very high end device, this being a device that's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, and what those micro PCs were before was they were baby's first computer, right? So they were the thing that the guy got, guy or girl got in junior high or high school, and then they went down like a direction of working in a STEM field or whatever. And then when they became adults, they probably, they got a PC or they got a Mac, or they were more so natively inculcated to be accustomed to having a personal computing device, right? That was a core part of the household. And that was kind of where that incubated. Oh, I see. You and I must have both given some money to Bloomberg.
No, I didn't give any money to Bloomberg.
Really? Because it was paywalled for me.
No.
I think that's why they didn't paywall it initially.
No, actually, when I try to access it through, I did like a Google search for the article. That was paywall, but when I went to Jason Schreier's Blue Sky account and clicked on the link, it wasn't paywalled.
Oh, I wonder if it's two different links.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not giving him money. I really don't read Bloomberg enough to.
I figured I could give him $1.99 per month.
Yeah.
It was just Apple Cash anyway. It's money Apple's giving me for free for spending money on my Apple Card.
Actually, you know what? I should probably do the same. I think about it with my Amex Gold Card.
No, what you should actually do is go back to Apple and get yourself an Apple Card.
No,
and then live off that Apple Cash.
No, I'm going with Amex. Actually, maybe I will get the Apple Card. Because I think the Apple Card, isn't it like the Amex cards are like not titanium. They're like a metal.
Oh yeah, if you get a physical one. The nice thing I like about the Apple Card is, and maybe other cards are like this, I don't know, but you can get it entirely as a virtual card that exists nowhere except in its attachment to your iPhone.
So you can get like a chip placed in your shoulder with your Apple Card.
What?
Nothing. As you get a chip placed in your shoulder, that's your Apple Card.
No, I don't think Tim Cook is moving in the direction of Elon Musk right now.
All right. Well, no, and I have a physical Amex card, Gold Card, but I use my points for different things, so to pay for different things. But I think a good idea. So, excuse me. But yeah, no, this is an interesting article, Logic, the Bloomberg article by Jason Schreier about Obsidian. I did read this. Some of the key takeaways here by Bloomberg AI, Obsidian Entertainment's head Fergus, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Is it Urquhart? Meets with management team weekly to discuss the studio's future, including recent games that failed to meet sales forecasts set by parent company Microsoft Corporation. Urquhart says that the company's trying to navigate a shaky games market and turmoil at Microsoft's Xbox game division, which has been buckling under pressure from ambitious profitability goals. Obsidian plans to work on projects big and small, space out releases, and reuse technology to shorten development times, with Urquhart saying, "We don't need to change everything every time, aiming to cut down development timelines to 3 or 4 years per title." Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting read, because we did find out that the Outer Worlds 2 did not meet Avowed. Actually, I shouldn't say just Outer Worlds 2, but Grounded 2 was a hit relative to its cost. We learned that, but we also learned that Avowed and the Outer Worlds 2 did not meet internal sales expectations, which was interesting. Also, that both RPGs took about over 6 years to develop. And this prompted Obsidian leadership to rethink development timelines and budgets. What else came out of the article?
So let me ask you this, BRAP.
Mm-hmm.
Because those sales forecasts were attributed to Microsoft. They were attributed to corporate. They weren't Obsidians, right? So one of my questions is if Microsoft corporate has an inability to accurately forecast its sales while it is concurrently running a subscription business, does that also mean that they have an inaccurate ability to really understand how much of their software sales they're potentially cannibalizing with Game Pass?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? You lost me
Yeah.
there.
So
If
okay.
what?
So
Okay.
this is a corporate staff that is
Yes.
a
Yeah.
running a subscription business
Yes.
where
Which
where,
we've
where
heard some internal, like, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, where notionally the cost of goods sold, right, is impacted by, well, the potential sell through of software titles that are funded by capital expense are potentially impacted by the subscription service you're running. And it seems like you have an inability to understand what that impact really is, and that's how you wind up with a sales forecast that misses on two titles in two different genres from the same studio, while you're concurrently pushing at least one of those games to also launch on PlayStation 5.
Yeah. I don't. Did so. Trying to think back. I think there wasn't there like a. I don't know if there was an article or something about internal studios didn't know what success meant at
Oh yeah, that
Microsoft.
was we started hearing that word when they did the the round of 1900 layoffs in January of 2025. At least was when we heard quotes from developers, both kind of off the record, but also then as the momentum mounted to unionize, we definitely heard people who were parts of the union organization effort say that one of the reasons we're doing this is because we don't understand what success means. We don't
Well,
understand
that's
what we're supposed to do as developers. We don't know that if we ship a game that corporate tells us makes sales numbers and makes engagement numbers, we don't know that equates to our studio not being closed or our project not being
yeah,
canceled.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so like that to me, like kind of begs the question, like, and I wonder, like, I'd be interested to know what those internal sales expectations were, right? Because I'm sure they have some, at least with the Xbox, I'm sure they have some idea, some target, right, for sales for Xbox, right? I'm sure they're not assuming everyone's going to be playing Avowed or Outer Worlds 2 um on Game Pass, right? On Xbox through Game Pass.
Well, the fact that they had sales forecasts at all means that
Yeah.
they expected to at least sell some.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they didn't meet those. But it's interesting too, like even with releasing on
Yeah,
uh
PS5.
PS5, like they still didn't meet expectations, you know? Um kind of begs the question, do we always hear more games everywhere is better, right?
Well, I mean, this is the point, right? You have
Yeah.
to you have to ship your games on multiple platforms to be successful. Xbox has a winning strategy. Okay, but they've literally done what you said needed to be done, and they're not meeting sales expectations. Right, negative growth in the holiday quarter, and negative growth overall over the span of a year, like to an extreme extent. And again, the big thing for me, the huge thing for me, is that is in content and services. Like, quite honestly, the slope of the line of the negative trend of downward growth is more extreme in content and services than it is in hardware over the span
Mhm.
of time from Q1 2025 to 2026.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
let
get,
me revise it. It's not it, the hardware slope is more shallow. It is not extreme. Um, but again, for a company that is tilting more and more towards content and services being their key OKR, right? That's worrisome that the place that you claim that you have the ability to do better and that hardware is your anchor, you're actually like doing worse in terms of trend analysis than your hardware business is doing.
mhm. Yeah, I think in the article I talked about like I have to go back and read it again, but I want to say that he said that they have to think about like that they may not be a studio that hits that 30% profit margin.
Yeah, I mean his I mean
And
the
so, yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and so it's kind of like it's interesting because what like we know that 30% thing is true, right? Despite some people saying it wasn't.
Oh,
We
oh
know
no,
that it is.
oh no, oh no, 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 no. Not some people. We, Microsoft themselves denied the 30%. And look, I have no choice. I'm backed into a corner at this point to say anything other than that was a blatant lie. The 30% thing came out, Microsoft denied it. Now you have the head of a Microsoft studio corroborating and indicating that the 30% thing is a thing. Now, what I will say is, I read his quote as 30% is not a hard and fast, right? It's not thou shalt make 30% or your head will roll and you'll be right. You'll be wearing another name tag somewhere else.
No, but you probably better be close to 30%.
I the way I read it is that your plan that you count like to your initial or maybe second or third green light meeting should be a 30% target. And if it's not 30%, you need to be able to walk the dog as to why. And it can't be and it shouldn't be bullshit, right?
I don't know if I want to be having those conversations at Microsoft.
Well,
In light of Q2 performance, by the way.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you
And
could definitely have those. I think you could definitely get away with those conversations. Like when, when you're
if
in
you
an
Phil Spencer,
organization,
if Phil Spencer's pitching the idea,
yeah,
you can.
yeah. I mean, when you're in a space where like your executive leadership aren't high performers, like I think it
Oh,
takes some of the
Roger,
pressure off you to be a high
come on,
performer.
come on. You say if you're pitching a game to Matt Booty.
No, I mean seriously, like if you have a leadership that is accustomed to making excuses, then I think that breeds an environment where it's okay to make excuses. Right? I mean, isn't that how you get bad sports teams? Like if you're
I mean, yeah, I mean, I lived this with the Washington Commanders for decades. Well, during the Dan Snyder, ownership tenure.
yeah, but I mean, even not just not just the fandoms, but like the actual person. Like if it's a team where the team players are allowed to, put, pass the blame off to like hey, well, other people don't get held accountable like we do. Other people don't get the calls that we do. You know, yeah. Well, if we were the Dallas Cowboys, we would have won this game.
Yeah, we would have won this game. Yeah, exactly.
So if you have
If that
players,
was Michael Jordan, I would have gotten this call. Jordan did get some calls though, but he earned it though. He earned it.
yeah, like if you allow your players to always pass the buck of the blame on like why they didn't win a game, then I think like that's the behavior you should expect from your players like at practice,
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. It's just, the 30% margin just seems tough, man. That's why that was kind of like my takeaway. I'm like, I
Well, it's interesting that he said because
yeah,
didn't he say he didn't think 30% was bad because if I take 6 years to make a game, I should be able to target 30%. I thought that
yeah,
was like the gist of what he
I
was
don't
saying.
know. I don't remember. And I also think too, like, he talks about like shorter, dev time. They're not the only studio to talk about that. Um, I think that goes back to that 30% margin, right?
So he says, for Obsidian, the targets don't seem unfeasible as long as it can continue experimenting.
Yeah, but I think I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Pentiment, the studio's 2022 adventure game, was cheap to make, critically acclaimed and niche, but still profitable. The hope, Urquhart says, is that Xbox continues to fund riskier projects and values achievements besides strong sales, even if it means accepting that maybe, in quotes, maybe where we are going to be from a profitability standpoint isn't going to be 30%.
I think so. When I look at that 30%, and I hear him say, less budget, um, not taking 6-7 years to make a game, right? And then you look at like his studio in comparison in size to some other big studios, right? The scope of the size of a game like not Outer Worlds 2, but what was the other one? What was the game that they outsourced to Idios? Grounded 2, right?
Yeah.
Smaller game, right? Was a hit. Like, to me, like it's that 30% margin, like, to me, that's like, okay, like we get that by having smaller teams, lower budgets, tighter scope, you know?
Well, it's problematic because he also got to that. I mean, not he, but they
Yeah.
also got to that profit margin like by outsourcing it to Eidos, which means I'm pretty sure the contracted fee paid to Eidos wasn't something huge. It probably undercut the going rate in the market.
Yeah, but he was also using, I think, existing technology and assets too, right?
Yeah.
And that's something else he talked about. So I wonder, and again, I'm spitballing here. Who knows? I just wonder like how that philosophy might play out across multiple studios at Xbox. Like, hey, smaller teams, lower budgets, smaller scope, like, to hit that 30%. Because I don't think like you're going to see like big blockbuster AAAs the way you do like at PlayStation. Again, could be wrong. I just don't see that though, based on like what he's saying, and then just I keep thinking about 30%, and then I look at like some of the studios that Microsoft has, like the Double Fines. I mean, Fable's the only real big AAA they have right now I can think of the top of my head. Obviously Call of Duty, right? But if you're not a Call of Duty, like what else is there? Big AAA, like what? I mean, is NXL working on a big AAA game? I don't think so. I mean, they have what's it called?
Clockwork Revolution.
Clockwork Revolution, which is more that doesn't look like a AAA game to me. Again, not saying there's anything wrong with that. I guess my point of logic is I see this as being a shift in we're going to make smaller games.
Yeah, I don't think that that's problematic though.
No, I'm not saying there's a problem with that. I'm just saying, like, I think that is the philosophy in contrast to what Sony does. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying you can't get great games, right? With smaller budgets.
But Spider-Man 2 is a smaller game.
What'd you say?
Spider-Man 2 is a smaller game.
Spider-Man 2 is?
Yeah. In comparison to the content.
I mean, yeah, no, it is, yeah.
So my point on this is that I don't think so. I'm not saying you were doing.
You look at Ghost of Yote; they reused assets.
Yeah,
and that was about $70 million to make or something.
Yeah, and I don't put a ton of weight into the reuse of assets. Code reuse is a discipline, right? In software,
Yeah.
like it happens.
By the way, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. By the way,
Right.
like, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying, oh yeah, they're just reusing assets, they suck. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, I just think that this changes their philosophy around game design and how they manage their studios and budgets. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't. To me, I'm not ready to put it. Like when you say game design, that to me means something different than your SDLC, right? Than your schedule, essentially, and your scope. And so I think, I think where I'm not in line is, I think people are going to equate this to making bad games, right?
No, and I'm not saying that at all. By the way, I just want to
Yeah,
double down and say I'm not saying, because you look at Pentiment. Pentiment was a critically acclaimed game.
yeah, I'm not there with you either.
Well, I mean, but it was though, like it was a critically acclaimed game. Like a lot of people reviewed well.
Yeah, I don't want to play that shit though.
Okay, but you don't. But my point is that it was still like there was a consensus, right?
Well, and a large part of the market apparently doesn't want to either.
I understand that. My point is, like, there was a consensus among reviewers the game was a good game. Well, it reviewed well. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
you're like, I'm not giving that game any flowers.
No, it's a good game in a niche of niches, you know.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing.
It is a bad thing if you're trying to run a platform business. Like, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's an inconsequential thing. I think that's my main point. It's a non-impactful thing, right? Pentiment didn't move numbers and make people subscribe to Game Pass or sell Xboxes, and that's kind of my point.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then, and I before I forget this point. You said it didn't move subscriptions. So what is does the formula then, there's a design philosophy shift to, do we need to make games, or how do we make games that are going to move subscriptions?
This is the same thing that I was trying to explain to the individual who argued with me, right? An argument that has now been debunked by this article, who argued with me that the piling up of content on top of each other must be intentional because it keeps happening. And that they would ascribe that to planned competence rather than assigning it to incompetence. I'm not necessarily going to say it's incompetence, but you got the head of the studio right here saying it was not deliberate. It was because mistakes were made, because we got behind schedule. Right? So what I've said for a very, very, very long time is that if you are running a subscription business, you need to have an intermix of bangers. You need to have your Stranger Things, right? But if you only do Stranger Things, that is going to make your company bankrupt. If you're only trying to swing for the fences with every software project. And so at tier 2, you need to have these things. You need to have your Umbrella Academy. You need to have your, whatever a tier 2 series is, right, on Netflix, right? Your Black Mirrors, your what is the detective thing? That's like every year it's like a different, like, set of famous actors or whatever being the detectives.
I forget the HBO one.
Yeah. Oh, is it HBO? I thought that was Netflix.
True Detective. True Detective. Yeah.
So you need stuff like that, right? And that stuff needs to come out frequently and consistently, to the point where it, like, this is the stuff that I talk about. Like, you need to get to a point where you are holding games because you've got too much. Now, they had that last year, and we were led to believe, I mistakenly extrapolated that they had hit what I had calculated, but it turns out they part of the reason why they hit that, maybe I was half right and Microsoft was half right. They hit that partially because they had games that were late, so they were getting their pipeline backed up. So I think, I think this strategy, and like you said, they're not the only ones saying it. I think this strategy could work, if you get 3 to 4 year games that are AAA games that don't overstay their welcome, look, I got news for you. If people haven't figured it out, Hamp ain't playing no 40-hour game in general, right? But I did play Doom: The Dark Ages and finished it because it was a 25 to 26-hour game. If you feed me another one of those things, like I think Clockwork Revolution is going to be, like South of Midnight was, right? I'll play that stuff. And I think that's okay. And I think that is what you need to make a subscription service go. And you need that stuff coming out regularly and consistently. And then you've got to figure out where to put the bangers. Microsoft's problem is they can't figure out how to put together a banger. They have plenty of tier 2 stuff, but they're not getting the tier 2 stuff out regularly and consistently, I think. And they have an inability, maybe they're inhaling their own tear gas. They have an inability to understand the relationship between and what's really going on with budgets and how much they're spending and how much people aren't buying stuff on their platform because of Game Pass. But then they're not able to get the stuff over to Game Pass fast enough to make Game Pass go the way that they need it to go. And that's why they're down 5% on growth in the holiday quarter.
Yeah, let me grab the super chat here. Zraya Chisel 4504, the $5 super chat says, "Hey gents, PlayStation numbers are out. Subitech tweeting about it." Yeah, I just saw that. We don't have a deep dive though in the PlayStation numbers. See if I can pull this up real quick.
Oh no, it's actually up. There's some companies that do this that will put the collateral up first.
Okay. Well, Logic, here let's look at this real quick. All right, let's take a look at this. We talked about this earlier in the show. All right, PlayStation Q3. Zubitech has summarized this, but probably we're gonna see if I can get Falky on maybe this weekend to go over the PlayStation Q3 fiscal year 25 numbers. Revenue 10.48 billion in Q3, second highest in Q3 in PS5 era.
Yeah, I don't. Look, if you want to give me flack for this, you can give me flack. I would recommend you go to the Sony investor site and pull the slides.
Yeah, no, I know.
I see what's going on in this post. And
I do too. Like
slides.
I want to see what Q3 was to Q3 2025 was last Q3. Not that it's the second highest in Q3 and PS5 era.
Yeah, so they were down. I don't have the percentage because they didn't put it on here. They were down.
They were down a little bit. I just see that
68.7. I think this is million. I also can't tell if this is in yen or. Oh yeah, this is in yen. So they were down on sales but up in operating income. So down on sales but up in profit, which is kind of what we expected.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go down here and see if I can see some more transparency.
Yeah. No, that's not. Yeah, I don't want to read Zuby. He's fluffing this a little bit too much. This is too much fluff for my liking.
Okay, here we go. Q3 FY 2025 year on year. Sales was a 4% decrease, and this is in the GNS segment. Sales were a 4% decrease in sales of hardware due to a decrease in unit sales and impact of foreign exchange rates is what they attribute that to. Operating income was a 19% increase. Positive impact of foreign exchange rates, impact of increase in sales from network services, impact of increase in sales of first-party game software sales. Wow. These haven't people been telling us for months that nobody cares about first party. PlayStation first party isn't doing well. Nobody cares about AAA. They had a negative due to increase in losses from hardware. So again, their profit in the holiday quarter was up 19%. Total sales were down 4%. As a result, let's see. Going into end of year, they have revised their sales prediction up 4% and revised their guidance for operating income by 2% up. And they expect that will be driven by impact of increase in sales of non-first party game software titles and a positive impact of foreign exchange rates. Impact of changes in the release dates of first party. Now, I think this is because I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at past years, but I want to say in past years I'm accustomed to PlayStation putting out something first party in Q1, and I guess that stems from my memories of like Horizon. At least the first game was Q1, right? And I don't know what they've been doing the past years. If they've had a first party title out in Q1 of the following calendar year. User engagement trended well in Q3 FY25 with monthly active users in December reaching a record 132 million accounts and total gameplay hours increasing year on year.
Did you see? I saw something about lifetime PS5 unit sales, 92.2 million.
Yeah. So usually they put that later in the presentation. So they usually give like the raw. No, I don't know. I don't know where they put that. They may have just put that out in a PR statement. It's not in there.
Yeah.
At least I didn't see it in there in the actual slides.
Yeah. I want to. Yeah. I want to see. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of reporting on this just yet. I'm not. At least I'm not seeing any.
Oh yeah. I mean, because probably nobody's awake hawking
Yeah.
this stuff right now at 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'd like to get CNBC says Sony profit jumps 22% December quarter, beating expectations and lifting full year outlook. See if there's anything about PlayStation here. Sales in the game and network services division, which houses its popular PlayStation home console brand, it represents Sony's top revenue driver, totaled 1.613 trillion yen, down 68.7 billion yen from a year earlier. Well, that unit has benefited from a shift to digital game purchases and growth in the PlayStation Plus subscription service. In recent quarters, hardware shipment growth has remained more subdued. Sony's hardware business expected to face headwinds this year coming from rising component cost. That's all that CNBC had to say about that.
Yeah, so of course the thing here that's non-apples to apples is PlayStation, at least in the slide deck, doesn't break out the difference in how hardware is doing versus software like Xbox does.
Mm-hmm. So last quarter, Q2, lifetime PS5 units was 84.2 million. Now it's 92. Gaming software units was 80. What is it now? I think it's at 90 something now. And they're up monthly active users, 119 last quarter to, was it 132 now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're up about 12 million monthly active users.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't think I'll be able to find it out. It's in their supplementary financial data PDF attachment, not in their slide deck. At least some of the other information is. Oh, so there it is broken out here. So yeah, game software, and this is again in yen, so I'll need time to do calculations to translate the stuff. I'm not going to do that right now. Great Scott. In wait. Okay. In in Q3 FY25, game software was up about 50 million yen. So they did 784K last year. I'm sorry, 784 million last year. Wait. Yeah, and they did 835. They did 835 in that quarter this year. So game software was up in contrast to what Xbox did.
So I'm sorry, you said game software was up
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
year for the quarter year
from the
prior,
quarter of the
right?
year prior. So last holiday quarter they did 784 135 million yen, and
Mhm.
this quarter they did 835 477 million yen.
So they sold more. They sold more software during the
Yes,
holiday season. They did last holiday season.
right. Yeah,
Yeah. Which okay. So they saw a positive increase compared to Xbox.
correct. Yeah,
And then what was the you said something about first party titles?
yeah. They attributed the increase to last quarter due to sell through of first party titles.
I thought first party games don't matter.
No, yeah. First party games don't matter.
Look, I mean
PlayStation PlayStation's not shipping any first party. They can't
this
afford to
is
make first party games.
this is the shit that drives me crazy. It's like every time we see these numbers, right? They totally fucking debunk all that fan fiction narrative that's out there, all that bullshit. Like it's just crazy.
Yep. But people
Every every single fucking time
and they
we
triple
get
down on it.
numbers. Yes,
They
and
triple
they
down on
still
it.
yeah, they want to argue against numbers. Guys, the numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. I don't get it. It's like these people don't pay attention. They don't pay attention. They're stuck in their own echo chambers, listening to those the naysayers.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
here's a good
yeah.
transparency number. Q3 of FY24, so year over year, full game software, PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 first party titles, they sold 11.6 million units. This holiday season, they sold 13.2 million units
What? I'm sorry. What was that? What are they selling there?
of their
Hardware?
first party
First
software.
party. So they increased first parties. Yeah. I mean, Ghost of Yote came out.
Yep.
Jeez. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, every time, man, every time, just never fails. Look, I'm about to put my Nikes on. I don't know about you, Logic, but I'm about to put my Nikes on.
Yeah, gotta knock the grass off the cleats and run the victory laps.
Yeah, I mean, this is just trickling now. We're gonna have more. We'll have some more information. I gotta get Falky on.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So this is a great chart. Cumulative sell-through units of selected first-party software titles. So Ghost of Yote sold 3.3 million units as of November 2nd last year.
That's a failure, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the budget, so it sold $3.3 million. What, $70 a pop?
Yeah.
Actually, it's not all $70, by the way. I mean, there is a deluxe edition, right? But let's assume it's 70.
Yeah.
And the game development was like 70 million, 80 million, whatever.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I don't call me crazy. I think my math says this game's profitable in 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what the fuck are these guys arguing about then?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand this. Like every time. Oh my gosh, every time, every time.
This is nice. Helldivers 2 sold 12 million units as of May 5th of 2024.
Across multiple platforms.
Yes, across PlayStation 5 and PC.
Nothing on Xbox.
It's weird. So the way they run this chart, they're just telling. It looks like they're just telling you the title in the year of its release. So like when they report the Astrobot number as of November of 2024, they don't continue to compile that number into 2025. It's just a milestone snapshot of how the title did in the first year of its launch. Ooh, yeah, these are some. But that being said, here's some interesting. Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition sold 20 million units in 2021 on PC. I can't tell what that other number is in there. Anyway, God of War on PC sold 23 million units in its launch year.
I'm sorry, God of War sold how many units?
23 million
on PC, you said?
on PC.
No.
Yeah,
That's got to be PC and PlayStation.
I
think that's PC and PlayStation.
I'm not. It's got a line for PlayStation 4 for 2018. It shows that it shipped 3.1 million units by April 22nd, 5 million units by May 20th. And then I don't know. And then it has a line for PC. It shows the release date of January 15th, 2022. Yeah, no, you're right. These numbers must be cumulative.
Yeah, I because the God of War number, that 20 million sounds about right. But it's my understanding, what I've heard in the past, that's inclusive of PlayStation and PC.
Yeah, because they track the number of global cumulative sell-through units. Yeah, so it's just a weird way. It's just a weird formatting in the chart.
Okay.
They put the platforms next to the release dates, and then they have multiple lines for their sell-through, which makes it seem like the sell-through number corresponds to the platform, but it's completely arbitrary. So yeah, but it's a significant jump when it goes to PC, because by 2018, when it's only on PS4, it has sold 5 million units. When it releases on PC, no. That's still weird. I guess it must be PlayStation 5 sales. They don't call PlayStation 5 out here because there's a PlayStation 4 game on PlayStation 5. My point is, April 2018, it's got 3 million units sold. May of 2018, it's got 5 million units sold. 3 years later, it's got 19.5 million units sold before it releases on PC. So it's just weird. 5, 10, 15. I mean, I guess that means it continued to sell at roughly 5 million units a year for the 3 years after that. So it seems like it didn't launch with a bang, but it strangely maintained steady sell through, right, at a flat level for 3 years, which to me is unusual.
They've sold 92 million consoles.
Yeah, where are you seeing that? Because
someone posted that.
I saw someone posted that, and I thought I would see the numbers.
Yeah, Genki, who I would take things from Genki. Did Genki put? No, he didn't post it yet. No, I'm sorry. Genki did post something. PlayStation outsold the Switch 2 globally over the 2025 holiday period. PS5 sold 8 million, Switch 2 7 million. Genki also posted Sony PlayStation 2. I'm not gonna. No offense to Zubitech, but he fluffs a lot of stuff. Like makes it like a big, ooh. PS5 units sold 8 million. This is again fiscal year 2025 Q3 financial results. PS5 units sold 8 million. Lifetime PS5 units 92.2 million now. Full game software units 97.2 million. First party software units 13.2 million. Digital down ratios 76%. Jeez, man. 76%.
Yeah, it was actually higher last year. Last year it was 80%.
Okay, so it's down 4%. Monthly active users 132 million. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know how people argue these numbers. I really don't, Logic. I really, it's flabbergasting to me how people argue these numbers and make these ridiculous comments. How exclusives don't matter. Exclusives have no impact. And you know what? 92 million without any price decrease. And in fact, the opposite, price increases.
Yeah, I just wish I could find that PS5 number like in plain text in an actual Sony document.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they have a table that has cumulative sell-through units of PlayStation hardware. I'm wondering if there's something that I'm missing. It says cumulative sell-through units of PlayStation hardware. And they have 2021, 22, 23, and 23. They have 10, 30, 40, and 50 million. So by December of 2023, they'd sold 50 million PS5s. So I keep scrolling through this. That's, first of all, that's just it's a very weird chart for them to put it. Like, why would you report up through 2023 and then stop?
All right, Hap. What are your quick takeaways here, man? We're definitely going to do a BRAP rant about the PlayStation numbers once we get a little more information. Maybe get Falky on. What are your quick takeaways?
I mean, it's a challenging time in the gaming industry for Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, Nintendo's literally having a party over there. And the only thing I can say for PlayStation's not unhappy.
I mean, PlayStation isn't going bonga the way Nintendo is, but they're doing well. Yeah. They're doing well. I mean, it's my takeaway is out of all the big three, the Xbox is the one that's having challenges in the industry right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's based on their financials. I mean, again, you guys can argue the financials. Have at it. If you guys want to argue against numbers, performance, tangible numbers, I'm not going to argue that with you because the numbers speak for themselves. There's no way to spin it at all. Yeah, go ahead, Ham.
Yeah, I mean, the apples to apples comparison is that. I mean, it requires some more picking apart, right? Because the Xbox overall, the business unit was down 9% year over year in the holiday quarter. PlayStation's down 4% in the holiday quarter. So that does represent a significant amount of challenge. Now, what's interesting, if you want to then do the apples to apples comparisons about the commentary on the causality, the Microsoft comment was, the things that were good were because it was a result of them moving to a higher margin business. Now, of course, we also don't have Xbox's profit number, right? We have PlayStation's, which says it was 19% increase
in profit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little murkier on how they directly compare head to head. But software wise, that's kind of a wallop, right? Because they made significant increases year over year in the software space. And we have sales numbers, right, showing how well their software did.
Yeah, Corey Mass saying software and services are up.
Yeah, very true.
I don't know, Logic. I'm going to throw on my Nikes.
So when we talk about the politics, the politics are way off, right? Because supposedly it was ship your games on every platform, and yet that's not what Sony is doing, and their content and services component of the business is actually doing better than the competitors. So I mean that's
Yep,
not that's not an insignificant takeaway.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. Yeah.
What one might say based on these numbers and based on the causality behind them, one might say that maybe if you did exclusives, then maybe you would move the needle. It's also interesting the rhetoric around, well, how many first party titles did PlayStation ship? And we always land on the one they shipped, Ghost of Yotei. I'm like, okay, but on the strength of that one title, despite the fact that you guys shipped 4 or more throughout the year, you shipped 4 that quarter, right? We have Xbox moving backwards, right, while PlayStation is significantly up on content and software sales.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might want to revisit this logic. See if I can get Falky on.
Yeah, nothing's. I mean, it's not the overwhelming walloping that I was wondering if it would be, but it is.
No, I mean it's not.
Ahead.
Yeah, it's not bonga like Nintendo, but it's good.
No, I don't take it away as a net good. I take it away as better than Xbox, right? But year over year, sales were down 4%.
Yeah,
overall for the division in the holiday quarter.
In the holiday quarter, yeah, and that could be like what Falky pointed to about maybe there's something else industry wide that's going on.
Maybe at the high end, but whatever's going on is industry wide, like isn't hurting Nintendo.
That's true.
So I don't know if it's industry wide. It could absolutely be my rocket booster analogy, right? That the rocket booster is starting to lose fuel.
It might be. I mean, we're year 6 into the console generation.
Yeah, because what Nintendo's experiencing, they're experiencing off the back of a new hardware launch, right, this year.
Yep. And when I say good, I meant the software sales numbers.
Yeah, but the lens I'm viewing it through, not because it's not in opposition. It's just my perspective.
No, I know what you mean though. Yeah.
The lens I'm viewing it through is, quite frankly, the content and services number would not have made a difference to me, except the fact that it was negative, and all the causality says that that's not where it's right. So that number is significant to me because it's like it's moving, like the needle's moving in the opposite direction from what it should be. You shipped more titles than you did a year before. Despite like that's another, to me, like a very misleading statement that was made in a financial earnings call, which I'm amazed no one called them on it and called Amy Hood on it. She said they're part of the reason they're down on content and services is because the preceding year they had a significant amount of first party content. They did not ship anything in the holiday quarter of 2024 other than Microsoft Flight Simulator and Indiana Jones, and they only shipped those on Xbox and PC. This year, this quarter, they shipped Ninja Gaiden 4, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 on PS5. Ninja Gaiden 4 was on PS5. The Outer Worlds 2 was on PS5. And Call of Duty was on PS5. Right? So, like, they literally shipped twice as much content this year. And they had huge, significant cost-cutting measures taken between the two earnings statements. So that's why the negative 5 in content and services, it seems to me like a huge deal. But like when I'm doing apples to apples across the two divisions, what I see is there's about one tackle's worth of space, right, between being down 4% overall on revenue for GNS and PlayStation versus the down 9%, for Xbox. Again, I do look at that 9% down as a little exacerbated because now you're moving backwards, not only due to hardware but also due to software. But I don't view the gap as huge. I don't view being down 4% as a good for PlayStation off the holiday quarter. Yeah, the difference though being maybe it's more explainable, right, than the Xbox one is.
Yeah, I definitely want to get Falky on, kind of do a bit more of a deep dive,
Why? Because you want to get Valky to take your side?
Yes, exactly. No. I don't disagree with you, Logic. I'm just curious to get his perspective because he mentioned something about, like if they're down, right, 3 or 4%, like there might be something else, right, happening industry wide. I think he said. But to your point, that Nintendo's not feeling that. But Nintendo just launched their rocket ship into space, and so the fuel's burning hot right now.
Yeah, and overall the console market was up, right? Off calendar year 25. So
no, I don't just I'm not. I'm listening to what you're saying, Legend. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm thinking about your rocket fuel analogy, and I'm wondering if that's really what's happening here.
Yeah,
because if you look at like the games being sold, right, like that was a positive, right? I think you said that in the financials.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that if you follow that thread all the way through, right? If you believe the first part of the hypothesis, then you have to start wondering about there being that 2027 launch date.
Maybe there is,
or 2028. I don't feel like a 2028 launch date.
And I wonder how much of this is the impact of console price increase, right? I mean, they haven't reduced the price of the consoles. Like, how much is that impacting that rocket fuel?
Well, it's definitely a braking factor, right?
Yeah.
Like you're definitely not getting that surge.
Exactly. So I wonder at some point, and maybe they won't. They may say, that no, we're not gonna. We're happy with where things are trending outside of hardware sales. Yeah, we're down 4% holiday. And I wonder again. I wonder how much of that's economic factors too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I mean, it was definitely a recessionary quarter. Recessionary quarter. If you kind of want to look at that, it was definitely a holiday quarter where I think people kind of held on to their wallets a little bit more than they have in past years. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely haven't. Sports. Yeah. No, some great points, Logic. All right, do need to wrap up the show. Probably gonna do another BRAP rant. Maybe see if we get Falky on. Gonna do more of a deep dive. But yeah, I wasn't anticipating those numbers to come out while we were live.
Yeah, no, neither was I. I was expecting them to come out about 2.5 hours from now.
Yeah. So
and apparently, I mean, and the webcast is up too. So I don't know if I guess their earnings call is they expect you to, like, they actually, I guess the earnings call is just going to be the Q&A part.
yeah,
The actual earnings call itself won't be live. It looks like they pre-recorded it. So maybe that's where that 92.2 million is coming from. Maybe they said that in the webcast. But
yeah.
I'm not listening to that whole thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely throwing on my Nikes though.
Yeah, just hang your hat on the positive numbers. Don't say anything about the negative numbers.
No, I mean, but there's something there. There's something is happening, right? I think that's what we got to kind of pull the thread on a bit more. So, all right. Want to thank everyone for coming by and hanging out with us this evening. As always, really appreciate it. Do me a favor, do the YouTube thing, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification if you are not a subscriber to the show. Did I get the? I think I got the super chat. Yeah, I did. Okay. Logic, always a pleasure, sir. Please let everyone know where they can find you.
I don't know. I'll be around.
I'll be around.
I hesitate to stump for my show because normally the way I do Gaming Outside the Algorithm, usually I tape like a segment covering 2 news stories like every day, and then at the end of the week, then I just ship it. Right, then I just put it together and ship it. And I haven't had a chance to do any recordings this week, so I mean, there will be a show this week. I just don't know what it's going to be like. But keep an eye out on Rounding Off Infinity if you're interested.
No doubt, no doubt. So, all right, and I'll probably give you a follow on Twitter, BRAP_podcasts. Get show updates there, and no, DJ Marshman, I probably would not be on Crossfire just because I got a bunch of kids' sports stuff tomorrow. Get wrestling, basketball, gymnastics, just a bunch of stuff going on. Thursdays are really tough. But yeah, BRAP_podcast on Twitter, X. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you get updates there too when we go live. So could probably do some kind of rant probably this weekend. Try to get Falky on, talk about the financials, Nintendo financials as well, and PlayStation. So, all right. On that note, thank you again for watching, everyone. We'll catch you next time.